We're back. We took a week off. Sorry about that. But we're back now with Talking Torah, and we have a lot to talk about. But before we do, I do want to make everyone aware of the fact that on Tuesday, November 11th, in the evening, we're going to have a commemoration of Kristallnacht, that night when throughout Germany and Austria the Jewish community was attacked. This was really the page-turning moment in the life of the Jewish community in both countries. So we have coming with us a woman who has authored a wonderful book in which she took the letters of someone who had lived through this and then came to America and stayed in contact with her family remaining in Germany. And you get a real sense of what these people were going through as the darkness really fully descended upon Germany in the aftermath of Kristallnacht. So that's Tuesday, November 11th. The other thing is we want to remind you that this Sunday morning we welcome to the Merrick Jewish Centre the candidates for the 4th Congressional District, District Attorney Kathleen Rice, who will be here at 9 a.m., and then at 10:15, Bruce Blakeman, who is the Republican candidate for this congressional seat. Please come down and meet the candidates. How about we get into some Torah now?
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, there's a lot going on in the shul. There's also a lot going on, though, in this week's Parsha, Parshat Lech Lecha, which is really the beginning of not only the stories of Abraham, but it's really the beginning of the stories of this Abrahamic line, which will continue, and we live out the story that began really with Lech Lecha in this week's Parsha always. And what we have, there's a lot to be said about Abraham. That's why there's so many Parshas where he is the main character. But one of the things that you and I were talking about off camera, about Lech Lecha, is that Abraham is really a trailblazer in many, many ways, not only in terms of monotheism, of course, and theology and all of that. He's also a trailblazer in terms of how to relate to family members.
There's a lot to be said about Avram. I mean, we spoke about him being, and I know you're going to talk about it somewhat on Shabbat, but Avram is the most influential man in all of human history because, as you said, the Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all go back to Avram. But one of the great traditions that emerges from the life of Avram is this commitment to bring peace into his home. Mm-hmm. I love the story of him and his nephew Lot. They are both owners of cattle and flocks. They both have need for pasture land, for grazing land. And Avram saw that there's strife developing between Lot and Lot's men and Avram's men about pasturing rights, etc. So Avram says this, very simply, please let there be no strife between me and you, between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we're kinsmen. And he says, is not all the land before you? Separate from me. If you want here, I'll go there. If you want there, I'll go here. Mm-hmm. But Avram starts off, he leads with this idea that he doesn't want strife. And therefore he's willing to make whatever compromises he needs to make, even, I suppose, to his own detriment, to make certain that there's that there is no strife, that there's shalom between the families. And I think that we learn something powerful. If that is our intention, if that's what we want, then we all have options we can take to make certain that we have shalom in the bayit.
Abraham has this interesting character, maybe not flaw, but he has, certainly not flaw, but he has a characteristic about himself, that is that he'll do anything kind of to avoid conflict. And I think that interpersonal conflict.
You know, because here, on the other hand, you have in this portion, you know, when Avram knows he has to fight, He
right,
fights.
Right, he fights. Right.
You know, when he knows he has to stand for what he needs to stand for in principle, on faith, he stands for it. But he knows that there's got to be places in life where people, out of love, out of a sense of kinship, just are willing to give. Are willing to give. You know, you will hear many times over your career people say about someone in their family, they're just not prepared to compromise. They're not willing to give. And a lot of people aren't. But Avram leads with that thought, I don't want strife. I don't want it. It's bad enough I have to fight with my enemies.
Right.
I don't want to have to fight with my family. You know? And that's what is so powerful about it, because here's a guy of great conviction and principle. And yet, one of his great feelings is that family is meant to exist in peace.
Yeah, his identity, his personality, is coming full into a fullness and a completeness already here in Lech Lecha. It's really amazing to see, and we learn. Fight for what you believe in, and one of those things that you should believe in is to not always have to fight.
Right.
That you shouldn't always be fighting. If you want to have convictions, if you want to be stubborn about one thing, make that one thing that you're stubborn about not being stubborn.
Right.
And
That's a good point.
Have conviction on being flexible, and being, and never be willing to change your willingness to change. I mean, that's one of the things that Abraham's character here is showing us.
Well, doesn't our tradition talk about us being as flexible as a reed sometime?
Right.
Being willing to bend. Not break. Right. But knowing that we have to bend somewhat.
Right.
And that's important. And, going back to this idea of conviction, here in this Torah portion, we see Avram, he's introduced to the world as the Ivri. The Ivri. We say Ivri means Hebrew, but what does that really mean? What is the real etymology of Ivri? It's on the other side, right? Aver, the guy who is Aver on the other side. And so Avram, compared to the rest of the world, is on the other side of things. He's a monotheist, they're all polytheists, right? He's embraced one God, they have more gods than you and I can count. Okay, he's rejected idolatry, and they embrace it. So he's Aver. He's on the other side, and those convictions are powerful convictions.
Yeah.
And certainly some of our rabbis comment on the fact that people notice that he's on the other side.
Yeah.
And Avram's comfortable being there. And look, we as a people have been comfortable being on the other side of issues when we felt that, and still today, when we feel that there are important matters where we can't just go along with what everyone is thinking or believing.
Right.
So, that's an important understanding for us. We are Hebrews, we're Ivri, which means that sometimes we really have to be ready to have some convictions.
Yeah.
And to stand with them and stand for them and not yield to them, because convictions are meant to be precious and embraced.
Right. And as we're saying, one of those convictions always should be a willingness to seek out shalom bayit, to seek out peace in the home, peace among family, and peace among friends, and where possible, peace among enemies also.
Yeah, and I do believe, here we have a tradition, our tradition, that talks about shalom on almost every page of our Siddur.
Right.
And look at something as simple as how the mezuzah is placed on the door. So the rabbis argue, how should it be placed? Well, one rabbi says it should be placed horizontally, because the mezuzah should symbolize that the words of Torah should be with us when we lie down. Another rabbi says, no, the mezuzah should be placed vertically, because the words of Torah should be with us, when you stand up, when you rise up. So, are we going to fight it out? What, horizontal, vertical? No, we're not going to fight it out. We're going to place it on a slant. Because, you know what? They both have right in the point of view, vertical or horizontal, and so you compromise for the sake of shalom in this case, in the yeshiva where this was all being discussed.
I think you're coining a new phrase, not flexible like a reed, but flexible like a mezuzah. We should be as flexible as a mezuzah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, no, it's good. Well, I think that there's much to be said about Abraham. Luckily, we have a lot more parshiot about Abraham in front of us, and even though we missed last week, we're looking forward to getting back on a regular pace, and we'll look forward to seeing you all then. So don't forget, Sunday morning, the candidates for Congress are going to be here, and on Tuesday night, we're having that Crystal Nacht program. That's
the 11th.
Oh, the 11th, not this coming Tuesday, the next Tuesday. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
And we look forward to seeing you next time. Lehitraot.
Lehitraot. Take care.